So I will introduce Ellen Govers. She's the chair of the Dutch Knowledge Center for Dietitians on Obesity. So Ellen is going to talk, is there a practice-based future for personalized nutrition? Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you, Anna. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming, and thank you, the organizers, for inviting me. These are my disclosures, none. So let's start with some definitions here. I have to work this microphone a little bit to my... Anyway, the word dietetics has been in use since 2 centuries, as you can see, and the word dietitian was also already in use for 1.5 centuries. And then I want to put your attention to the definition of diet, because here we have a controversy built in already, and I'll get back to that later in my presentation. So you can see a diet is something general and something specific. Now this is a challenge, of course, and IFAD has made a definition of a European dietitian, and we do that with 28 countries and in agreement, in total agreement with everyone involved. So we are autonomous healthcare professionals who assess specific nutritional requirements for populations and individuals. And we translate that in a practical advice that can be used every day. So, and dietetics is the assessment of specific nutritional requirements of populations or individuals. And as you can see on the bottom of this slide, we were not the inventors. Hippocrates was already very much into nutrition, as you all know. So the role of the dietitian in obesity, we have put that in a position paper 8 years ago. And we think dietitians are uniquely qualified to translate the scientific evidence on energy intake and expenditure for individuals and groups. But here comes the quintessence of the story. Dietitians always make a personal assessment of the patient, which does not involve nutrition alone, or weight, or some other criteria like glucose or blood pressure. We take the whole patient into account, so the whole situation of the patient, social, emotional, work-wise, anything, environment, everything that involves the life of the patient and that can influence their food intake, that is taken into account, and that leads to a dietary diagnosis. So that's a much broader picture than just a carbohydrate intake or an energy intake or fiber shortage or whatever. So in short, a dietary advice by a dietitian is always personal and is therefore always personalized nutrition in itself, by definition. So it's always practice-based and it's adjusted to the patient's needs and possibilities. And these can change during a treatment, because a treatment by a dietitian is most of the times long-lasting, especially in obesity care and its comorbidities. We have long-lasting relations with the patients. And I also want to point out the last line on this slide. This is the reason why we as primary care and clinical dietitians are never satisfied with handing out general guidelines to patients, as is suggested many times in obesity care. Not 2 patients are alike in their needs and possibilities and in the phase of their life that they want to make changes. So it's always personalized nutrition, what we do. So here is a summing up of diets that we definitely don't use lists. We have lists of products, but there's always an individual advice attached to it. So then there's also a program in Europe that was looking into personalized nutrition, but that was something different. It's food for me, And they made people fill in questionnaires, and there were 9,000 people doing that in 9 countries, and then they took 1,200 of them and divided them in 4 groups, and they made them fill out questionnaires, they made them report their blood pressure and their cholesterol, that is the group diet and phenotype, and then they made them also make a swab of their saliva and send that in so the genes could be analyzed. So, and all these groups performed better than the control group, but there were no significant differences. And then Stuart Knox did a review on this, and she found out that the people that were most apt to follow the advices that were given by the internet were the people that were confident that their data were not unsafe, that the data were guarded safely. You know, this is a very actual discussion right now. So that was one of the criteria why people would not follow the advices. They were worried about their personal data. So, but this is not personalized nutrition. It's called personalized nutrition, but personalized nutrition is that I can see the patient face to face, and that I can take in his emotions, his or her emotions and their barriers and everything that is added to nutrition, because nutrition is not only about carbohydrates and energy, it's also about emotion. So, and also in my country, you are not allowed to give advice through the internet if you have never seen a patient. That's forbidden by law. So I think that would be in most countries. Now we have to go to obesity, and this is the new definition of obesity. This is not just a fat accumulation as it was. We have 3 groups of morbidities attached to obesity. And if you look at it, the left group is insulin resistant and the right group is most of the time not. But there, of course, there is a combination. You could have like hypertension and coxarthrosis, or you could have cardiovascular disease and sleep apnea, so that you would have both. And when you look at personalized nutrition and you look at patients, this is a cohort I set out in the Netherlands 10 years ago. There were 1,546 adults involved, and we followed them for 6 months, and we saw that, you know, a large percentage were reaching more than 5% weight loss, 40%, then 37% lost 1 to 5%, and then there was also 20% that didn't lose weight at all. So you have to look at the patient. You can't just say we do a hypocaloric diet or we use a diet based on the Dutch dietary guidelines, which are healthy enough, but maybe not beneficial for some patients, as the former speaker also suggested. And we saw that people on a low-carb, high-protein diet, which is not like low-carb, like 20 grams per day, but it's more, but it's less than 100 grams per day, we're losing more weight and losing more waist circumference. So here's food for thought, so to speak. Not everyone is the same, and we need to look at patients very carefully. This is the mapping exercise we did in this program, where we were making the position paper, and you see that most of the dietitians work with the individual assessment, and you see a sort of a choice of diets they give patients. And the ultimate goal in weight management is not working to guidelines. It may improve the quality of obesity care, of course, in general, but it never guarantees successful weight loss on an individual level. Never. A patient is not a guideline. A patient is an individual. And the ultimate goal should be loss of body fat, preferably the abdominal and visceral fat, loss of waist circumference, and reduction of comorbidities. And to reach this, we need personal diets. And these are my conclusions. I have 7 seconds left, so. So, yes, personalized nutrition is essential. Every patient is an individual that needs and deserves individual care. And we need time. RCTs take 6 months. We need a year and a half, which is good, because if a patient works on his health, he is improving already, and he may not reach the targets we want him to reach, but he will get healthier in the run. So, and patients with sick fat disease need other diets than patients with fat mass disease. And not every diet fits every patient, and patients know themselves. Ask your patients, what was successful for you? Because this is a lifelong condition, and you know that people will have that the rest of their life, so they will have tried many things already. So, and we need flexibility, and well, this is what I already said in the previous slide. We need also improvement of quality of life. Thank you for your attention.